When you're adding music to your applications or even to your website, one of the things you have to consider is having an on and off button just in case someone doesn't want to hear the music that you're playing. So what we're going to create is a simple button that can turn the music on and off. And we're going to build a toggle system. First, we'll build the graphic part of saying sound off and on, and next, we'll build the actual music control. So let's go ahead and get started. Now looking at our sound toggle button document, we have our text sitting on the stage, and we haven't turned this into a symbol yet, but that's the first thing we need to do. So I'm going to right click, and I want to convert this to a symbol. And I'll call this sound toggle. And I want to make sure I'm turning off the autoplay timeline. Let's click OK. And if you look at our stage, we now have sound toggle in our timeline. And now we want to edit our symbol. So I'm going to simply double click. And now we're on sound toggle's timeline. Now the first thing I want to do is the text here. Instead of it just being text, I want to change this to off. And I'm selecting our text here. And I'll go over to our properties. Instead of this always being on, I want to set this to on. All right. Now the next thing we're going to do is create our sound on element. So what I'll do is right click on our off layer, and I want to select duplicate. Now, instead of this saying off, as far as the layer, we'll simply call this on. And I'm going to double click on the text here. Instead of this saying sound off, I'm going to type sound on. Now, if we look, we can see both of these, and that's a little bit confusing. So the next thing we'll do is where our on button is, we're going to turn the display or the visibility off. You can just simply click to turn that off. So now we see sound off. Now I'm going to move our playhead out to about a half a second. And what I want to do here is where the on button is, I'm going to click to turn that on. And for the off button, I'm going to click to turn this off. So now if we look at our timeline, at half a second we have sound on, and at the beginning we have sound off. Now the next thing we'll need to do is we're going to add some labels. So we'll do Command L, and the very first label, even though the stage says sound off, we're going to type on. And we'll move our playhead to the half second mark and create another label, Command L, and for this one we'll type off. This seems a little bit confusing, but this should make sense once we add our scripting. So I'm going to right click on our sound on button and come down to open the actions for on. I want to select click, meaning if we click this, we want something to happen. And I'm going to select stop at. So basically when we click on the main timeline, this is going to stop at a certain area. So let's put quote and unquote. And since we're clicking on the on button, where do we want this to go? To the label on. Okay. And next, we'll select all of this, copy it, Command C, Control C on PC. And we'll close this window out. And let's go to our on label, and we'll select the text that says sound off, right click, open the actions for off, and we'll do this one on click as well. And now I'll just paste what we just copied, Command V. And this time, if we click on sound off, we want it to go to the label off. So we'll close this out, and let's test our movie. Command return, Control Enter on PC. So there's sound off, and if we click, it goes to sound on. And if we click sound on, it goes to sound off. Now one last thing, right now we can still select this text, and we want to make this look like a button. So let's close this out, and we'll go to our main timeline. I'm going to simply double click on the stage, and come down to the cursor. Instead of it being auto, we want the pointer. So now if we test this, we now have the visual part of our toggle button working.